Hey, what's up everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Saturday to you. It's May 18th, 2024. And I hope that you are having a great day, awesome weekend, pardon me, and a wonderful life. I know I'm laughing, but I do mean it. It's almost comical how much I mean it, actually. You wouldn't believe how much if you could be inside my body, and my brain, and my heart. All right, so let's see where we are today. Nose itching. What's the word of the day? Spirit, talk to us nicely if you please. Oh, I know that's right. Oh man, Spirit said, yes, ma'am. Oh man, that is something. Oh man, the Empress on deck. First card out. Topic of discussion, as she should be, right? Oh, that was classic. We got some Page of Swords energy. Somebody's quite inquisitive, curious, observant. Of course, curious, observant, and enraged all at the same time. They couldn't stop it just looking. Now they're excited to take action or to make an advance. With the Page of Cups. What's the Page of Cups? I'm feeling an attack on the fertility of the Empress, or actually on the offspring of the Empress. That's what I'm sensing here. Or at least, maybe not an actualized attack. This may be a little bit unconventional of a spread today, because I just want to get it out here. Let's see what we got. So maybe not an actualized attack, but at least a motivation for one to want to feeling some ownership. Yeah, the reason why I'm saying that primarily is because the Empress is definitely an inflection of either a married woman or a mother figure, and if not actually in the physical sense, energetically or creatively. So that's what I'm sensing here, that someone has been, you know, definitely watching. And then the Nine of Pentacles is the opposite, like a single lady, self-sufficient, almost the pre-Empress actually, but definitely implies some singleness, you know. So I'm picking that up as it could, someone wants to make someone single without dependence, you know, or infertile or something like that. Yeah, but it's like judgment's called on that, which is why I said it might be someone's intention or motivation to do something to bust a funny move, but Judgment is not letting that be. And then what else we got? What's under Judgment? Yeah, that's the plan, and it's been called into, it's been called off. It's been called into question, and there's been a ruling in the favor of the objectified force here against any activity or plan of action that would be an offense to the, ultimately just to the, in this state, the security of this feminine energy. So we could be talking about this in a very general sense. Personally, this could strike a chord where your creativity or a feminine's creativity could personally be under attack by those that have been kind of like lurking, stalking, observing, taking too much of an invested energy, interest in what's created by the Empress, and being objectively motivated to strip her of that creativity or of that creation or of just the sheer potential power of creativity. The illusions here, the Seven of Cups. Yeah, it's like anything, this could have been the case, and now this could be the past, this could be the present, this could be more or less the future, that somebody was always lurking to just kind of keep tabs on, keep a watchful eye on anything that, it's just like as soon as this feminine energy were to produce anything, it's like somebody was there to snatch it, to grab it, or to obstruct it or stop it in its tracks before it could even mature into anything productive, which is why like this is the outcome here, where it's almost as if she had no children at all, because everything that she tried to do was aborted, you know, assaulted in some ways. Interesting. And so Judgment's being called on that. But oh, is it through the dream state? With the Seven of Cups here? This is illusions. It's a bit mysterious too. It's almost like a mystery person that whomever or whatever this obstinate energy was, preferred to stay anonymous or mysterious. So almost like a faceless force of some sort. I don't even know what that gets to look like. Practically so, it could just be somebody that at a distance, which the Page of Swords does imply, is somebody that could have been throwing rocks, hiding their hands, maybe speaking on the character, the honor, or whatever, like speaking poorly with sword energy. It could be communication about whatever the Empress was, whatever there was that was a derivative of the Empress energy, whether it be an actual physical child or kid. Somebody could have been talked about as a mom, talked about as a wife, if that applies, as a creator, could have been a business owner, a boss, some high level position of power and in a company or something like that. Anything that someone could say to object this, like to almost strip somebody down of their prestige and affluence, is what they committed to, but in a very secretive and very like shady type of way, like behind closed doors, you know. Yeah. I want to get more from what this energy of the Page of Cups is, though, why I'm reading it as offspring, because I feel like there's more to glean from that. But this could have even, as a matter of fact, given this is Cups too, yeah. All right, it may get a bit mystical here, but it could be like someone entrapping someone's ideas, like either astral projecting or somehow intercepting frequencies that would be materialized creativity, as the Page of Cups ultimately is, like almost creating like this net to entrap ideas in the ethers, or in some, again, it could be practically so in just some mysterious way, as in like hacking, hacking your computer, hacking your phone, hacking, maybe even hacking your friends or your network or whatever. But something here is like real shady and underhanded, that there were some ideas that were intercepted before they even materialized, or before they could materialize. Whatever it was, though, because with the Nine of Pentacles, it's like somebody was still, somebody not only still maintains their position of authority and esteem regardless of all that, they also, it's like what was anticipated to strip someone down, yeah, it may have, but it didn't at the same time. Because could it have been that, there's, how can I say this? Like maybe someone was detained in some way, or let's say a position, an official position of the Empress, the CEO, the founder, the entrepreneur, whatever the title of this position was kept, was never quite, disseminated, because of what never materialized. Like, as it's like, well, you can only be the Empress by title if X, Y, and Z. Yeah, you have a baby. Yeah, you have a business. You are married. Like all of these like requirements, so-called, so to speak. So somebody thought that if they stripped everything down from what would ultimately amount to the title, the official title of such an honor, and a prestige as the Empress, that would somehow keep someone from being activated in the power of it. However, that was an illusion, especially to whomever was the protagonist in this case, because that power is internal and is spiritual first. And especially with the Judgment card here, that's by a matter of decision and, you know, an exercise of judgment and authority over self before it is anything externally measured, you know. So somebody was just looking from the wrong scope of pronunciation or proclamation. I don't know, something here that they felt like because it couldn't be officialized or officiated, maybe I should say, that it would be null and void to whomever it should have naturally been bestowed upon. However, it's like the Empress was always the Empress at heart. And lo and behold, the Nine of Pentacles is the pre-Empress anyway. So it's like where there was, I'm trying to say this in a way that really makes sense, where it was thought that someone was really stripping something away. It's like they were always going to be do it anyway, and that kind of added, it seems, to the value of building the character of this energy, you know, this feminine energy, honestly, more so than it mattered whether or not the title was awarded, if that makes sense. It's like what it was going to happen anyway, but what was withheld also added to almost building like the job skills or the experience that would have prepared or has prepared the energy for the position even before the title, and would make them that much more qualified in that regard to hold that position and title with greater skill. Damn, does that make sense? It makes sense to me, but I don't know if it's making sense how I'm saying it. Let's just get some more. Let me see if it'll come through a bit better. So I said that as more personally, I would say like more universally, it's the feminine energy holistically, you know, that feminine force that doesn't need to be defined in any confined way. You know, like the Empress is the Empress. It's like you could have a female at her worst and at her best that still is highly valuable because she can produce, she can conceive, she has seed, you know, there's a certain essence of the feminine energy that is invaluable to creation, no matter what caliber of frequency, vibration, quality, value that she is, right? But the masculine forces that have been obstinate to the evolution and ascension of that energy have worked quite diligently to attack that fertility and the frequency of that fertility, meaning in the quality of what gets to be produced by her, you know, by her deliverance, to work to somehow depreciate her value from that projective point of view. Like, this is all you can do, like almost, you know, like demean the value of the feminine energy by way of what she has been depreciated to be good for, you know, if this is making sense. Like, not the Empress, but this single lady at, you know, is almost given damsel in distress type of energy, And, you know, and whatever it is that you can produce in power and in the physical form, you being measured by that, but it being very much an imbalanced playing field as to what you get to produce, because the you know, it's been skewed for you to be able to do so, feminine as a whole, without interference, distraction, disruption, destruction. Like, there's been more or less an all-out attack on the feminine energy, even by those in her most intimate space, you know, meaning well or not, you know, but it has had an effect on the quality of what she's been able to produce, yet and still she still manages to be productive, and regardless of what that frequency of productivity is, it still is that much more invaluable, because if she stops producing altogether, then it's almost like the end of the world, judgment, you know, like, if you get what I'm saying. So it's like, never mind how invaluable her energy is, but now it's been depreciated and almost deformed to some degree by way of attack and things of that nature, and just not being well cared for. And yet she's still able, in dire circumstances, to hold the weight of the world, more or less, and to be a contributing creator to the world. And it's like, with that being said, you know, with all that there was less to work with the void and what there was to work with, to hold a great deal of responsibility, and still somehow, you know, more or less measuring up to the challenge, lo and behold, as it said in the personal instance, it actually made the feminine energy stronger to have to contend with so much opposition and so much resistance and all those things that I've already spoken of, to still have to deal with all that. And it's like plain and simple, like real practical. The circumstances that create single motherhood, where if things were not as distorted in frequency as they are in the earth, there are layers of why it happens this way. Some, of course, it's a matter of personal choice and and decision making and all that good stuff, but there are other things before that limit our choices, limit our possibilities, skew even our perspective, here we go, of what we have, what's available to us and what's not, that distort our emotional frequencies from making the most empowered choices for ourselves, not just feminine, but also so masculine. So even on both sides, there's this distortion and illusion that has dismayed all of creation, more or less, but the feminine is taking the great brunt of it for the most part. We can definitely agree, because the feminine energy has been more disempowered in comparison to her male counterpart, intentionally so. So it's like, within the scope of what would be natural, you know, without any interference or detriment to natural evolution, she would be well supported as the Empress to create in her highest feminine energy and be supported with the counterpart. Like I said, she usually would be married and or have children. there would be that dual support between feminine and masculine energy so that everyone can play their perspective role, whatever that's decided to be. But there's no stress on one end or the other to perform or to produce. She could just be the empress, and in the connection with her emperor counterpart, there is peaceful productivity, or let's say prosperous productivity assumed, right? But then you got this single lady who could even be representative of a single mom type of energy, where it's like, because there's certain, of course, we know the personal implications as to why someone would become a single mom in the practical sense. But when you consider the bigger scheme of what has happened that would cause this reality, even beyond what someone would want to choose for themselves, it's like, consider the great number of single moms that have had to shoulder the weight of doing it all by themselves and still producing, you know, highly functional and productive assets to society and to creation overall. Yeah, there is a depreciated value there when there's a strain and a stress, for sure, but to some large degree, it's still the work still managed to get done to the point where there still is creativity, there still is fertility, and even under the most strenuous circumstances, against the odds of what would be natural, even success stories, you know, beyond that, of many, countless children that have been raised by single moms or single dads and are flourishing or have flourished in society. So when we're talking about just the feminine energy, it's speaking to like a great deal of what's had to be shouldered, almost like, you know, unfairly to some degree, because of the imbalance in creation that's been imposed. And yet and still, you know, thanks be to the feminine energy, who not only had to give birth to the children, has still had to find a way under some dire circumstances to raise them, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, because even if you had the worst conditions as a mom, as a child growing up, you still have the chance, because you're here living and breathing, to shift that reality for generations beyond you and for yourself even. So it's still like a matter of like, even with the worst case scenario, the shouldering of that pressure has still been relatively well managed by the feminine energy, who's had to take on a great deal more of the stress and strain of creation than we can honestly say is due to her, given the circumstances. You know, like I could even use my own case as an example. I don't think I will unless the cards call for it, but I could, to express like the practicality of what I'm trying to say here. You know, first of all, because I am a single mom in this moment, and I do think that I'm doing a pretty good damn job, but the circumstances in which I'm having to do it are a bit unbalanced and definitely, you know, not the most fair for me. I take responsibility for the choices I made and who I chose to procreate with. You know, there's that. Yet and still, the fact remains that, as I'm speaking of here, what I'm having to work with and produce, how I'm, you know, being called to perform and produce on account of what my voids may be, is commendable, if I do say so myself. You know, and that's just me. And certainly, for sure, I was raised to be and more or less to be an empress, you know, on the surface. That the subconscious is another story, but on the surface, I came from a 2-parent household, a mother and a father who were married. So, you know, it's not for lack of exposure or upbringing or, you know, grooming, you know, to some degree that I would fall into some cycle of something different. But regardless of what, it's more societal and even spiritually circumstantial as to why, you know, not just about who I fell in love with and procreated with, because it was that, but there were the systematic disparities that were, you know, variables that were involved beyond my control, even beyond my knowledge to some degree, that played a part into a greater scheme of imbalance. And I don't even know what to call it. It's more than just imbalance. It's like something much more, like something more grave here than just imbalance. Like things that shouldn't exist in humanity but do because of the cycles that have been perpetuated over and over again, not just from a personal point of view, but like I said, me being born being raised a certain type of way, but then encountering the world in a certain frequency where now these issues kind of have become mine because of what's been superimposed in the world to be almost like a sickness or a cancer, just I don't know what to call it, like something tainted with the Page of Cups. I don't know how to say it. Let me try to get some more cards because I'm spending a lot of time here and I ain't even getting no real cards on the board. This is a bit of a doozy, I know. I hope you can feel me. Yeah, exactly. But this is what I'm saying, though. It's something here, pardon me, that I'm trying to get to, that it would be expressive as the moon, where there's this like, what's on the bottom with the King of Cups? It's like, and that is, it could be Cancer and also Pisces. So it's like this, and this is Scorpio. So yeah, it's like this psychological infection, maybe. It's not, I'm not getting words to, it's like, I dumbed it down to bring it to a more practical perspective of what's more relatable, but it's far more grand and maybe galactic, or at least more universal of an infraction than it is just single motherhood and, you know, the many layers of why that gets to be. You know, it's even by way of like almost like infecting the King of Cups, which would be the most loving king, you know, like some distortion, yeah, from the Page of Cups, like a distortion of a disruption in the spirit. by way of the psyche and a tainting in the emotional space, so that there's never really, there's no, it's so impure that, given that's the seeding, right? That's the seedling that would procreate with said feminine energy. It can't help but produce a certain offspring, more or less, whether that's physically so, again, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, but it's almost like set up to continue to like reproduce this offspring of fear and illusion and obscurity in the spirit, unless, as I said, and this is how the feminine has been shouldering that charge, unless the feminine, who's able to receive that seed and reshape it in her womb first and foremost, or in her presence and her being, and then deliver it, literally deliver it to be a completely whole organism. Back to what I was saying, in the practical sense, being better off to be able to do that in a balanced partnership, in a loving commitment where there's a shared responsibility, but still somehow being able to do it as a single woman with less resource, with less support, with less stability, and at a projected depreciated value at that, and still being able to turn over a highly valued product or creation. There's something to be said about that here. Like that wasn't supposed to be the case, which is probably why the womb was the woman more so than the womb, because the womb, I don't think could really, the womb was attacked by way of the depreciation of the seed itself, meaning the masculine energy, which makes sense as to what I'm talking about with single motherhood here, as to why, certain defective circumstances would cause that outcome. Men who aren't emotionally available, have had a great deal of trauma and points of attack, especially from childhood, that they've had a harder time learning to deal with because they've been more disconnected from their emotional aspects. It's just like something about it being recycled over and over again, like, and the feminine energy, which was to ultimately be attacked into almost a submissive reproductive organism herself, is like, yeah, make the babies, make the humans, but they're more or less like wards of the world. I was going to say of like wards of the state, but it's bigger than that. It's like she would have been well, not well anything, but the point would have been to almost like seize the being to be like a baby, a human making machine, but depreciate the vessel from truly acclaiming this position of power and prestige, let alone what reverence is truly due to her on account of what she offers in creativity, by depreciating the means in which, and the resources in which she has to be productive in the first place. And then almost like deflecting even that part of it, about that part of it as almost like a chastisement as well, which is what the Judgment card is for. This is deep, and I don't think I'm doing it justice, but it's something really fucked up here. And I honestly don't know where it's coming from, because even in terms of what the masculine energy would be so-called responsible for, they're just as much of a victim of their own circumstances as they are the perpetrators of any assault to some degree. So I don't know if we're talking about a particular group of creation, or if we're just talking about humanity overall, and there being some otherworldly or extraterrestrial type of energy that's been an influence in this. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but given this is Pisces, something about that makes sense too. That, yeah, like the and it's a slow burn. It's hard for me to really say this, which is why I know it's probably a little bit mystical and a little less practical than what I'm trying to dumb it down to, that I may not even really have the right terms to say what it is I'm trying to say. But anyway, it's like even where the masculine, again, may have been a perpetuator, it's almost like the overseer effect, where the masculine's been incited with the same, a different, perhaps in some regard, level of illusion and delusion to just really kind of like, you know, facilitate the imbalance and the infraction as it is against the feminine energy, so that he almost like keeps her in her place of dysfunction while he's also in a place of the same, you know? So really he's no more affluent really in real life, like just illusionarily so, but no more affluent in his existence than the feminine counterpart, because her affluence is his affluence when we're talking about the feminine and masculine energy. When you consider it all comes back to the womb and what's being birthed over and over again, and then what gets to be nurtured on account of that deliverance. So which is why like this cycle continues, where it's almost like what's first, the chicken or the egg type of thing, because the seed comes forth, and unless it comes through a particularly dynamic feminine energy that is evolved enough to shape and mold that seed into more than even what she knows, you know, to be true, or even more than what the organism is like almost created to be and do, you know, like really almost creating a miracle for real in this realm. Because from the time of birth, there, you know, that is pretty much set up for there to be, it's like when you buy a car and as soon as you take it off the lot, it depreciates in value. Like the moment that you're born, particularly, I believe, of certain cultures, but maybe just generally speaking, and it just varies from, the levels vary from culture to culture. But when you're born, it's like you're automatically delivered into turmoil in some way, shape, or form, you know, whether it be your circumstances, your surroundings, your social status, your economical status, the culture, where you live. Like there's this range of things, and sometimes even when you have like the best pedigree, so quote unquote, especially by material standards, there can still come a great deal of challenge even with that. So it's like something about the womb, the woman, and this portal being, I would say, being vindicated, cleansed, and regenerated. Almost like labor shouldn't have even had to be so hard, like somebody constructed that even. You know what I mean? Like left to creation's own device, labor would just be like having, you know, a bowel movement, like that, effortless compared to what it actually is. But somewhere along the channels of creation and the distortion of creation for eons, clearly beyond what any of us would know in this lifetime, this has been an infliction that was imposed. And I say it again, it's like chicken or the egg, who knows? Because yes, the seed is inseminated and the feminine cultivates that seed, conceives it, and delivers it. But then what is produced is, again, on account of the caliber of which that feminine can be productive on a, you know, based off of what she's been reduced to work with. So then there's the flip of the coin as to whether that fertility, that production itself, that creation itself will be highly functional to supersede what it's been, you know, the slate of productivity that it's been accounted for, or will it just be like one in the, you know, of the many, to then be an inseminator of the same frequency to then, you know, to keep the cycle going. So it's like something here is needing to change the evolution of creation. Maybe it already has, and this is what we're coming into the knowledge of, because, you know, when you consider that this has been going on for so long, and the population of that, let's say, distorted seed to some degree must be greater at this point than what would be anything miraculous or what would be a word, like extraordinary, you know, like extra from ordinary, you know. Yeah, like maybe the proof of it is coming forth to see. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why it would be, other than, like I said, the vindication and the ultimately the halt of, like, almost stopping the conveyor belt, you know, to some degree, of this mass production of defective seeds, you know, not calling anybody in particular defective, like, you know, categorizing or labeling anybody this or that. But when I'm saying defective, I mean, you know, when, not that you are less valuable per se, especially in the eyes of the source of creation, because you got to consider, like, this has been some interference, okay? So I'm talking about those that almost never really stood a chance. Like, it was almost inevitable that because of the interferences that are projected to us as, oh, well, this is just the choices that you made, or this is how, you know, it's like you did this to yourself type of energy. And in the primitive sense, yes, we have, but in the universal sense, no, we haven't. It's been the realm of reality has been shaped and molded to limit our choices in that Seven of Cups energy, so that there's only, so it's like you were almost set up for failure in either way. some way, shape, or form, you were going to meet some demise. You were going to meet some roadblock, some diminishing variable that would keep you from operating in the fullest frequency that you would have been destined to and what you were designed to ultimately keep some containment over that elevated frequency, which is obviously much more self-sufficient and empowered and less susceptible to control and dominant influence, you know? So it's something here, man, that whatever it is, judgment's been called on that interference. And so I feel like it's going to be redemption for masculine and feminine energies. And like I said, like stopping the conveyor belt from continuing to produce that defective seed where, you know, if not for the interference, everything would be rolling out naturally and organically. So it's putting a stop to that process and regenerating some new fertility and creation of sorts that is evolved or advanced. That's what I'm getting. And it could be because of the ascension of those and the awakening of those that are already present. And so the deficiencies and defectiveness somehow dissipates for those that are, you know, that's able to be a reality for. I don't imagine that it's just like, you know, a switch flips and everybody's deficiencies just melt off of them like butter. I don't feel like it's that, but that's why I feel like there's a great separation at this time, because those that, here it is, those that already held the position of what would be supreme, extraordinary creators, masculine and feminine, that had a lot less to work with, you know, as I spoke about it as, you know, the single mom energy, but still did the absolute best that they could, have been judged even before this judgment has been pronounced. It was all being taken into account, how that was managed, the decisions and choices that were made on account of this deficiency and defecto energy in the realm. And that if you were still able to curb your lack of enthusiasm instead of your enthusiasm for life, regardless of that, in spite of that, maybe even in light of that, that somehow is what has ultimately then ordained that position of this evolved and established power of influence as the Empress is, that whatever comes from your fertility, whether it be in the physical, the spiritual, the creative, whatever it gets to be, that's what's going to contribute to repopulating the world on the back end of what has been discontinued. Got it. Okay. That makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I get that now. It's like a new make, a new model is being put into production. Not that it's just one singular one, but one that is beyond, again, the deficiencies, that it's like those that have not been deactivated on account of like a recall type of energy, like those that haven't been completely deemed like what's the right word, like unredeemable in some type of way, or like you can't, you know, it's the difference between like you have a recall in the car and it just needs to go back to the shop, get something fixed, and then it can be back out on the road. Then if it's like a recall in some way, like say on a food or something that's been tainted, and it's like everything's got to go back and everything's got to be trashed. It's like the difference between that. Everything doesn't have to be trashed, you know. However, everything may not be redeemable or savable at this point either, because so much damage and tainting has been done, that it may take a great deal more time for all of creation to be back into production effectively. But there's enough in the market. This is very interesting. There's enough in the market of creation for there, you know, the recall, so to speak, happened on account of what a lot of us have experienced over even just past the 10 to 12 years, where we've gone through a great deal of like spiritual reconstruction, you know. And now how you've handled that recall of sorts is ultimately making room for these positions of promotion where it may not be an actual title or label of the Empress or CEO or boss bitch or whatever the hell else, you know, but your authority and influence and power in the realm is going to have a great deal of impact on what gets to be materialized and manifested in creation on multiple scales at this point. And because it's coming from a high caliber, as you've been more or less like reconstructed to be, you know, maybe even back to your original form before the defecto, you know, before the defective insertion took place, whatever that is that I can't put a name to. Even if it's that, like coming back to your original make and model, whatever that may be, it's now what is going to contribute to turning over a new product of creativity and creation in the realm that's going to ultimately take up marketplace value, if that makes sense. This is so strange. I don't even know what I'm going to title this or nothing, because I know y'all probably like, what? Girl, is you smoking? No, I almost wish I was. This is, I'm going to post it because I don't hold nothing back, but just know that I'm like, yeah, like what? But regardless, here's a celebration. Something's happening right in the world. Here's the crossover moment. Yeah, this is happening. This is something that's happening in real time. I just don't have the right words to express it. I even feel like that's supposed to be over here for real, for real. Let me see. I guess it doesn't really matter in this reading for real. I said it was going to be unconventional, didn't I? Yeah, this goes here, this goes here. Because this is the energy, like even with the masculine energy, and it can't even be so primitive as like the patriarch, the matriarch. Like that's another defective inflection to keep us distracted as well to some degree, you know, like to even keep us at each other's neck instead of coming together. But the Seven of Pentacles is even like the masculine energy, like rethinking what they've been invested in just as much as the feminine energy has, you know, to some degree, which is promising because we need all of us to be back online. Like I said, to start that reproduction over, you know, or start it on a better note now, instead of not the feminine doing all the hard labor by herself and the masculine reaping all the benefits, but not really reaping much in the emotional sense because they're not getting the nurturing that they need on any level. And the feminine's not really getting the support and protection that she needs. So there's still a void on both sides. But that was what was infused intentionally to keep us separated, you know, to keep us at odds, to keep us distracted. And again, to use each as like almost a work mule to make product as the human being, but for the purposes of almost like creating a commodity to be more or less like shuffled and hustled around at will. But, you know, like manipulative and manipulatively speaking, definitely not in sovereignty, you know, as sovereign spirits of our own vessel. No, as something else controlling those vessels. And we know how that gets to look on every level. But something's being halted big time. That's like the biggest takeaway. And there these highly vibrational feminine energies who have already proven to be up for the challenge are the portal of new creation. They can't be by themselves because this is the Empress. So there's going to be, yeah, this is the stress and the strain here. This is the servitude, enslavement even that was meant for creation, but it's not effective for sustenance of creation. Those that interjected this energy could care less because it was just a matter of really just sucking the life out of the inhabitants of this realm for their own, you know, intents and purposes. But the creator of all absolutely cares most. Instead of cares less, cares most, because it's not forwarding for creation, for its, you know, descendants, for this to persist. It's not fair and it's not productive. Like there's nothing that's gained from it vitally that would be worth continuing, which is why there's like an energy stepping in to cease and desist it all. Couple more and then I'm done. This is weird for a Saturday. Well, there's that, crossing over again. What's on the bottom? Queen of Swords. Where should this go? Let's put this here. Or no, I feel like it should go here. Crossing over from these illusions and delusions about ourselves even, to be free and liberated in the truth of our I would say like the most honorable feminine essence as the Queen of Swords, like knowing who you are, being activated in that honorably, discerning, objective, very clear, you know, seeing things very clearly, but it's the feminine energy because still being very open to what information you may, you know, that you may need to know, what truth is still yet to be received, but operating only in that frequency, leaving the illusions, the delusions at bay. Or out to shore, I should say, in this case. So weird, so weird, so weird. Let me just get one and one. here's the Tower. Yeah, so it's like whatever this is, it's going to dismantle a lot of foundations that maybe people have firmly been, yeah, with the Five of Cups. It's going to disturb a lot of foundations that of truth and information that we thought were secure. Like, I know it sounds really crazy how this is coming out, but that's why I'm having a hard time with finding the words, because it feels like it's something like new, a new enlightenment of some sort that's going to be disseminated to creation overall, not even just, you know, masculine, feminine, you know, a certain group, a certain culture, a certain race. It's going to be an overall truth that is known, that's going to just completely destroy the foundations that we fortified for ourselves about life, about how we live, who we are, what are we doing here, who's in charge, who's, you know, who's not. Like, much more than the primitive. Like, we're going to find out that there's so much more behind who we are and who, you know, or that's been interfering with who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be than we could have ever imagined could be true. Because whatever it is, it's not as practical as just, oh, the government, you know, or like your family, or your, you know what I mean? It's like bigger than that, like to the point where the energies that are may or not be activated in perpetuation of this infraction are going to also be enlightened, because they're not even aware of what they've been in submission to some degree. And for some, it may be a great deal of a liberation, like, oh, wow, you know, finally, now I understand and now I can move on. For some, it may cause some despair, maybe even some depression, guilt, or shame on account of what is revealed, like what you've really been in alignment with, you know, that may not be as favorable of a reflection. And really that comes down to, like I said, how your defective circumstances were managed, even when you didn't know anything, when all you had was what you were working with in front of you. So really, it's still a matter of everybody being judged fairly according to their lot. Because even if you do find out a truth that's unfavorable on account to, like, you were in alignment with an energy that isn't, you know, that is like diabolical or something like that, you still don't necessarily get a pass, you know what I mean? Because it's like we were all given more or less the same will to decide and discern, different levels and frequencies, of course, but still all the same. We were all given it. So it's like you're judged according to what you did with your level and at your level, not in connection to one person or the other, but ultimately, like, what did you do with what you had, you know, what the circumstances that you were given, not deflected onto, you know, as an unfairness or imbalance. Because, yeah, that did exist. It did. There's no doubt about it. But it's not like a measure of success in terms of, like, oh, well, you were able to do X, Y, and Z, or, you know, become a successful lawyer or a doctor. Like, it's not by title. It's something about frequency here, like how you invested your energy and your, how can I say it? Like, how you maintained a position of prominence even when you didn't have the title. You know, did you squander it making decisions that were to the detriment of others, even to the detriment of yourself, without grace or consideration even when you may have done things that weren't all that great or all that, you know, that you may not be so proud of, it's still a matter of how you manage that energy and what your intentions and motivations were for it. You know, like what was your, and the spirit knows beyond all. Like, that's why it's like out of the hands of man how this gets to be accounted for, because the spirit knows your energy, your frequency, your energetic signature throughout all of this experience and every experience beyond us, you know, before us, to be able to make a justified decision and determination of what gets to happen next, you know. And I feel like something too about whatever that revelation is, it's something deeper here too, because I don't think it's as fantastical even as just like God saying, you go this way, you go that way. I feel like it's something about whatever this revelation of truth gets to be, and whatever is reflected back to you is what ultimately will be damning or liberating for each individual according to what you know, like what you know you cultivated while you didn't know, you know, while you didn't have all the information. I feel like there's something here, like almost like a weighing of the heart on the scales type of energy, where you really create your own level of judgment, more or less, because whatever is like revealed to you, like surprise, this is what you've been doing, or this is who you've been, this is what you've been attached to, whatever, is the thing that's going to be like, that it is like the resolve, you know, of your righteousness or unrighteousness, but based on what you receive it or recall it to be, if that makes sense. God, I don't know how to say this. It's like, say, a judgment day scenario, and each person has their own experience. It's not like a big universal, the clouds are breaking and we all, it's like the judgment being this repeal of those clouds, that haze, as in the Seven of Cups. And you realize, like almost a reflective image of your true identity in an instant. It's like, I don't even know if I should say this because I feel like I'm already going too long, but I had this image right before I started this message where, like, back in the day at carnivals, I don't know if it's still the case now, but back in the day at carnivals, I used to love the bumper cars. And the bumper cars used to be like, they would have this cord that would attach to the electrical car that was attached to this grid up ahead. I don't know the mechanics of how this all worked, but I'm assuming that grid was electric, and that's what ultimately, when they turned on the switch of the game, that's what allowed you to kind of stay on track and within, you know, the boundaries of the car area, but that's what actually powered the car to move around. That's what I'm assuming, right? Well, for whatever reason, I had that image and I saw it as like your so-called higher self, but how I like to express it now, your supreme self, and that rod being an attachment to whatever that source, that power source is in that grid, right? Now, it doesn't materialize in sight to you as anything but a grid, like a firmament to some degree. You know, if you're thinking about it now, it's not a person, even though a person flips a switch. It's not a person that you can identify as the reason why that car gets to move around by way of you controlling the direction, right, with the wheel. So I was likening that to like your supreme self being the intangible force and power source to some degree that is very personal and individual, right? Because each car has its own rod, but it's all connected to this one grid line. But my rod doesn't work anybody else's car, you know, and if my rod is detached from that grid line, it doesn't move. So I saw this as like some type of revelation about the Supreme Self and what that, it must just be an energetic force. It can't necessarily be a person. But what I feel in terms of what I'm speaking of here is that the revelation of that power source is like at some point in time, maybe the clouds dissipate from it just looking like some inanimate force of mechanics, and there's something more relatable that you, perhaps the reflection of it is what becomes relatable, right? And so imagine you looking up in that bumper car, up that rod, and what you see at that power grid is like an actual person looking back at you. Like instead of you seeing that grid, you see like your own individual person like moving your car like this, you know, like the astonishment of that would probably knock your socks off by way of the tower card to like completely blow your mind as to how you thought life, you and you within life worked all this time. You know, it's something like that here. And I don't know how that gets to be. And I don't think I should try to dig into it in this moment, but I feel a great deal of what I was trying to say throughout this has some connection to that. And for the judgment and revelation as we practicalize it gets to be is you coming face to face with yourself to some degree, maybe perhaps a culmination of who you are in this moment, and what your ordinance in this life gets to be on account of this new order of productivity. And for some people, I feel like that may be a very powerful reflection, an empowering reflection. And for some, maybe not so much. Maybe not so much. And that could be on account of how they drove their car before that revelation was, or before this revelation is made. And, you know, some people went off track on that car, you know, and found other ways to power it forward that weren't in alignment with the overall source, that grid. And I feel like those are the ones that may now, and look at this ride as I'm saying that, those are the ones that may now be looking up and realizing that they're not on the same frequency of power source that is most sustainable for wherever we're going to next. It could have been something for where we were, but where we're evolving to, it's like it calls for a whole new frequency of power that you would have had to more or less been a conduit for before you can be a conductor of at this point. One more just to even it out. I hope that makes sense. Damn, I wish I would have thought, wow. I wish I would have thought to say that before I said all that I said. Wow. Well, here it is, the Hierophant and the Sun, and I'm done. That to me is a perfect place to and with the moon here, absolutely, to stop right there in my tracks, literally. Exactly. It's like, this is like spiritual authority incarnated here with the Hierophant, ordained authority. Talk about position of power. You know, this is the closest to the God card that there really is in the deck, you know, energetically. So this is exactly what I'm saying here. Like the revelation, the exposure of what really has been your source of power and authority. And it doesn't then defect or what's the right word? Like turn off your authority. It actually turns it up. especially if you can handle the astonishment, which I believe that you will, you know, because, you know, you've been ordained to do so. But if you can handle that revelation as it is, and that transfer of power, it's to ultimately boost your confidence and your assertiveness by way of accepting that authority, not deflecting it or rejecting it at this point. That's been the problem, is that for too long we've been deflecting our power to a source that's unknown, but that ultimately more or less was fabricated. What we thought we were deferring it to, I should say, wasn't even the thing, because it was even beyond ourselves most times for many of us. It's something about reclaiming that power source from an integrated identity between you and it, seeing that that rod is directly connected to what you thought was the unknown. You know, it turns out that it actually is quite familiar, not unknown at all. That revelation is for the purposes of now asserting that energy and that power force within the realm to again initiate and perpetuate that productive cycle of change and creativity that's needed to kind of undo all that has been done for so long, defectively so. Now we're being effective in our assertion of power. Assertiveness. Wow, here's the Ace of Cups. Out of this, I'm gonna put it this way. Out of this despair, depreciated, poverty, scarce, not enough, not doing enough, not revered as enough, like just lowly creatures that should be lucky to be alive, to literally accepting the supernatural, unadulterated, unlimited, and unconditional love of the divine. Like accepting that as the truth of who we are and as our own force fuel. Again, that surge of energy, this is that in the purest form. Like gasoline to a fire. In the highest grade of gasoline, you know, like premium. This is that. It's something about all that here, about really accepting an advanced identity in creation. Not even just about position, it's about identity to activate and assert power that's already been possessed, and that's been, like I said, it's already been affirmed beyond the position. Now it's like really time to take that position, take up that space, so that the effects can be evident in the realm intentionally so. Not just by accident or by default, but now with intention, which hopefully will be imagine what you've done with less, you know, with less awareness, with less resource, less support. Imagine having all the facility, resource, support, and authority that you could possibly possess. Imagine, hell, it might be a matter of all of creation can change in the blink of an eye, when that many conducive and conducting energies of the highest source of power are online and ready to produce. Maybe it could be that instant. Maybe so. I guess we shall see. Ooh, I guess, if we're lucky. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.